Hey everybody, Tim Eyman here, running for governor as you know, and currently outside of the Seattle City Council chambers. So we are right down here at 2 o'clock today, actually be testifying against Kshama Sawant's job-killing job tax. Going to make sure that we have at least one voice speaking for the majority of voters in the state of Washington that are against any kind of income tax, because clearly that's what Kshama Sawant is pushing for. We fortunately have right now, she's having a town hall meeting that's on another phone that I'll be able to show you here in a second. But one of Inslee's worst things that he did during this shutdown is he made sure to shut down the Open Public Meetings Act. All of us have a fundamental right to be able to see the government, what they're doing to us, what they're doing, imposing on us, and have a chance to weigh in on it and vote on it, and have a chance to weigh in on it and testify. Not during the shutdown. Inslee made sure to include a Kshama Sawant exemption that allows her to be able to continue to push her socialist stuff during this shutdown. So we do not have a chance for our voices to be heard, and it's not a coincidence that they're doing this in the middle of the afternoon on a Monday when all our regular voters, regular taxpayers are all at work. So what I'm going to have Chris do is go ahead and put on his phone Kshama Sawant and the stuff that she's saying to her people. And she's basically saying to everybody, go ahead and put it on so that I can see it, so I can look at it. So it's actually on the screen, so I can actually see it. I'm seeing audio only. I'd like to see a picture of her, please. So anyway, so I'm here outside. I'm going to be testifying after 2 o'clock is when they're actually going to have testimony. They have to do it virtually. But what we're going to end up doing is, can you have it be where your picture is appearing on there? So the very clearly, Kshama Sawant is now the head of the Democratic Party. She is Governor Sawant. She is Mayor Sawant. This is very clear that what she's doing is exactly what Inslee and Durkin are signing off on. They've been pushed around by her. She is really the thought leader of the Democratic Party now. They're basically all socialists now. And she is the avowed socialist, the one that actually says she's a socialist, but pushing an income tax, making sure to chase away all the various businesses that are in Seattle, all of them with the opportunity to be able to do that. So here we are, listening to her.
Together have a stake in a society that is free of racism, free of gentrification, a city, building a city that is affordable for all people. And that's why.
So this is her declaring victory. This is her basically saying, I have already won this fight. I already have everybody on my side. She, by doing that protest in front of Mayor Durkin's house, sent a very clear message to all the other city council members in the Seattle City Council. This will happen to you unless you go along with me. And so that kind of bullying works. It absolutely works. It's working every step of the way. You saw her bring 1,000 people down here, unlock the doors late at night when the rioting was going on. Got away with it. No negative consequences whatsoever. So you have Kshama Sawant pushing the agenda for the Democratic Party. She's pushing this head tax and income tax. That's exactly what Inslee and Frank Chop have just done. They've just introduced a bill during the next special session where they're going to be pushing the Kshama Sawant proposal, but doing it statewide. So we have Kshama Sawant is actually running public policy for the Democratic Party, which means all levels of government are now following her lead and making sure that they end up doing that in Spokane County, Whitman County, Yakima County, Pend Oreille County, Columbia. Every single county in the state of Washington is susceptible to Kshama Sawant because Jay Inslee is perfectly satisfied following her lead because that is where the base of their party is. And there's nobody standing up for regular taxpayers. So I'm down here at Seattle City Hall making sure that we have at least one voice down here that's opposed to this. I'm making sure that I'm standing up to it because everybody else has been bullied and intimidated by Kshama Sawant, but I am not. So I'm here to basically speak out against this horrible bill this horrible ordinance, which is the final vote that they're taking on whether or not they're going to have this. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of set this thing up, and it fell over. So Kshama Sawant, she is over right next to me doing this town hall meeting, virtual town hall with all of her people, and she's saying this is a big victory for our movement, and talking about how they were able to beat the establishment. The establishment rolled over easy once they saw that she ended up being able to essentially do this big protest in front of Mayor Durkin's house. Mayor Durkin folded like a cheap tent at that point, just said, whatever you guys want, that's what it's going to take in order for us to get back these 6 blocks in Capitol Hill. She is bulldozing because nobody's saying no to her. And so I'll be testifying, making it very clear that the majority of voters are totally against what she's doing. Socialism has not worked in our world's history. Certainly hasn't happened in national history, in our nation's history. Certainly isn't working on a statewide basis, and it sure as heck isn't going to work here in Seattle, because businesses, employers, employees have all realized they don't have to actually be in a building in order to be able to get their work done. They're going to be able to actually move and leave. And there's no reason you can't set up, not in Seattle, but maybe Bellevue, or maybe Yakima, or maybe Spokane, or maybe Idaho, and maybe not just Idaho, but Montana. And once these employers leave Washington State, they ain't coming back. This entire shutdown that Inslee instituted is an open door policy for every single business to say, now we're going to restructure. Now that we know that Inslee is this off the rails, is this really where we want to rebuild our companies, or do we want to rebuild our companies someplace else? And that is atrociously bad for everybody that Kshama Sawant says she's standing up for. Working class folks do not have the option to move out of Seattle. They're stuck here, and their employers are about to have a mass exodus because they're doing this huge jobs tax. And if you tax something, you're going to get less of it. So she's doing a job-killing jobs tax exactly at a time where that's the last thing you ought to be doing. So Kshama Sawant doing her town hall meeting. Let's go over here and let's listen to the interesting little show that these guys are doing.
And the individuals that make that up. I'd like to introduce our first community speaker. Probably nobody, very few, if anybody, can, has fought harder, sacrificed more evenings, more weekends, more energy than Reverend Angela Ying, senior pastor at Bethany United, who also...
So they're having their little victory lap. They're having a chance to be able to highlight this massive victory in their minds. But what's going to happen is they're hurting the very people that they say they want to help, which is working class folks that are here in Seattle, and they're going to hurt them because there's no jobs going to be able to handle this stuff. The people that are successful in life are going to be able to move someplace else. Everybody else is not. So this is an absolute invasion of people's good public policy, of tax policy. It's all being done in the middle of the day when we're all at work. That's the only time you can actually pass this kind of crap. And I've already talked about how there was 2 years ago, I was here wearing a Let the Voters Decide t-shirt, making it very clear that if you're going to do this, let's let the voters decide. I'm going to be here advocating very much the same thing, that if they're going to impose this massive crushing thing on our economy, the voters should have the final say on it. Let the voters decide. The only difference is now I'm running for governor and I'm not wearing a t-shirt. Instead, I'm wearing this stuff. But very clearly, we see people that are in favor of socialism. We've always had people in favor of socialism. We've never had a governor like this one that's perfectly happy with it. Jay Inslee is completely off the rails. He is completely nuts. He is not acting like a Democrat. He doesn't act like a representative. He is doing things to us that is right up Kshama Sawant's list of things that she would want to be able to do. Creating a crisis, taking a challenge, turning it into a crisis by shutting down our entire economy, making sure that during this kind of crisis, this is the time where you fundamentally rip up the social fabric of our state. And I think that that's exactly what this is about doing. It's not about tax policy. It's not about economic policy. This is about fundamentally restructuring our government so that it ends up being the socialist model that Kshama Sawant has always wanted. That's what she's doing. She said, we will not allow this legislation to be watered down. We will not allow any backpedaling on it. So what I'm advocating for is that 2 years ago, there was a referendum to actually let the voters have the final say on this. No reason we can't do it again. And we have to get a ridiculous number of signatures, but there is fundamentally, this is our freedom on the line. This is a fight between freedom and socialism, and the question is are only the socialists going to show up? Are only the Jenny Durkins that are willing to roll over and basically say, you know, Kshama Sawant, you're basically the mayor. Why don't we just go ahead and let you make all the decisions now? Because you showed up at my house, and I didn't like that. So whatever you want, Kshama, I'll give you whatever you want if you'll just leave me alone. So they're not standing up to her. They're not doing anything to deter her. What are you talking about? They're encouraging her. She ended up unlocking the doors to this entire building and basically said, let's let the anarchists, let's let the rioters in. Paid no price. She's now being rewarded for that kind of lawless behavior. 6 blocks of Seattle, she ended up negotiating a peace where this was the payoff, which is this legislation that they're passing today. Every single city council member on there is going to be saying to themselves, do I want to protest in front of my house? Do I want Kshama Sawant and her troops showing up on my doorstep? This is absolutely what bullies do when nobody stands up to them. So I'm here, the middle of the day, going to make sure that I testify on the bill. Even though there is no Open Public Meetings Act, Inslee suspended that during this shutdown. Legislating is still going on all over the state. City councils, county councils. There's no doubt that we have governments all over the state that are imposing legislation that is not good for us, and they're not being restrained in any way because they don't have to worry about the citizens showing up. They do it in the middle of the day. They make sure that there's no citizens that are allowed to come. Anybody who is a freedom fighter that chooses not to wear a mask, you're not allowed in. They're doing everything they can to restrain commerce, restrain free speech, restrain citizens that are freedom-loving citizens, and they want to make sure that the citizens don't have any chance to be able to have a voice in any of this stuff. So what do you have left? You elect somebody new. You can do that in November. You actually choose in August who you want to have challenge Jay Inslee, and I would hope that my efforts are showing you the kind of fighter I'm going to be if you nominate me to take him on. The other candidates, they're not traveling around the state the way I am, tackling these public policy issues directly. They're not showing up at the hearings, not showing up at the events. They're doing their own rallies for their own selves, and that's all fine and good, but it's not actually getting us anywhere to stop what's happening to us now. And I'm a candidate who isn't satisfied just giving speeches and making promises. I want to actually deliver results while running. So we're very proud of the lawsuit that we did to open up schools. They're opening up in November, or in the fall, because we fought back with that lawsuit. We filed the lawsuit on the masks. We did that on Friday and announced that one. The essential versus non-essential, we're in federal court, going to be getting a court date any time now, asking for a preliminary injunction on that. But here we are, full on, flat out socialism in downtown Seattle. And every other candidate has their own things to do. They're doing other stuff. Most of them are hunkered down because they're getting, crap dumped on them, because that's what happens when you run for office. I'm kind of used to getting crapped on, so I have no problem with it. I just let it roll off my back because I have a dinosaur skin after 17 statewide campaigns over the last 22 years, and we won 11 of them. And we did it, we got those victories by never backing down, by always standing up and being willing to stand up to socialism, whether it's being pushed by an avowed socialist like Kshama Sawant, who is kind of Governor Sawant, Mayor Sawant. I'm not sure quite how I should address her. Democratic Party Chair Kshama Sawant. She's basically running the entire Democratic Party now. They're all just parroting her, and I don't know if it's through intimidation or whether or not they're just always been here and they just needed somebody to take the heat for it. But the reality is that's the train we're on right now. Now, the Tim train is in favor of freedom and opening up Washington State and not mandating masks and relying on people's common sense to realize that socialism doesn't work, that all businesses want is to be able to open up and service their customers and take care of their employees and allow their employees to not get a paycheck from the government, but to get a paycheck from their employer, because that's a heck of a lot better way to earn a living than it is to count on the government to be able to do it just by them printing more money. So I'm here, Seattle City Council chambers. Give you a little tour. So this is right outside. Actually, we'll kind of flip it around so that we can get it the right side up. There we go. So here we are, right in front of council chambers. I was here 2 years ago where citizens were actually able to testify against legislation. Here I'm going to be doing it virtually, but you're only able to testify if you sign up between noon and 2 p.m. They limit you to testifying only if you're able to get in time during that 2-hour period of time. Guess what Kashama Sawant did? She had all of her people straight up at noon sign up for it to make sure to use up all the slots. So normal, freedom-loving people are not going to have the same opportunity to have their voices heard. So what we see here, I'll show you in the background here. Look through there. You see old Lisa Herbold and all the various socialists / Democrats on the Seattle City Council. They're all doing their thing over here behind me, but they're in some other room, some other place. May even be doing it out of their homes for all we know. And Kashama Sawant is doing a victory lap over with her community organizing event. So what I want to do is be able to speak out against this job-killing jobs tax that she wants to push, an income tax. It is clearly an income tax, and it's going to be imposed on everybody eventually. And what we need to do is stand up to it and say we're not willing to accept that, because 10 times at the ballot box, the voters have said no to an income tax. The only way they can ever get their agenda is legislatively. The voters aren't in favor of it. And what you need to do is you need to elect somebody that actually respects the voters enough that when they vote no for an income tax 10 different times, that's a pretty emphatic statement that income taxes should be off the table. 2 years ago, before the Seattle City Council, I was saying, let the voters decide, because they unilaterally, people call me all during the day. So over behind me is all the ostensible offices for all the city council members. So that's where they're supposed to be, but they don't have to be here. They're still legislating, not even being present. So we're in the Seattle City Council chambers. This is where they had literally Kashama Sawant opened up this area here and let in 1,000 rioters and 1,000 anarchists, all while late at night, where that is totally illegal. Laws don't apply to socialists in downtown Seattle. They only apply to me and you. So what we're finding over and over again is that this is the lawless Seattle that we basically had for 6 weeks over in Capitol Hill. And it was only when Kashama Sawant showed up at Mayor Durkin's home that suddenly Mayor Durkin said, well, this is just beyond the pale. You're putting lives in danger, Kashama Sawant, by doing such a thing. But what'd she do? She immediately shut down the entire area down there only when it was herself started feeling it. She wasn't representing people. She was just basically perfectly satisfied with small businesses and regular people having a tremendously difficult time in this lawless zone. It was only when it affected her did we actually get any kind of movement. And what did she do? She ended up giving Kashama Sawant exactly what she wanted, which is what's happening today. So when you succumb to a bully, when you absolutely appease a bully, when you appease a tyrant, this is the kind of outcome that you're going to end up being. And as a candidate for office, one of the reasons why I absolutely, adamantly oppose everything Jay Inslee's doing is that you cannot give these people even an inch of your freedom. Because if you give them that inch, they will take a mile. So it starts with masks, and then it moves on to contact tracing, and then it moves on to something else, and then it comes to a stay-at-home order, and then it just says, oh, but it's all voluntary. But then they eventually escalate it in order to it being mandatory. And now it's 90 days in jail and a $1,000 fine if you do not comply. And then he has his snitch list, which are all the people that are out there that their sole purpose in life is to enforce his edicts and make sure that people are harangued and harassed if they're not wearing a mask. And they want to make sure that everybody is pitted against everybody, because that is the environment they want, where everyone's at each other's throats, everybody's fighting against one another, and we all forget who it is that put this whole thing in motion. And that was Jay Inslee shutting down our state, doing this lockdown, creating the snitch list, pitting people against one another, this racial division, everything that's going on, you can lay at the feet of Jay Inslee, because if he hadn't actually shut down our state, if he hadn't actually locked down the economy, all those streets would have been filled with commerce, with people walking around. Businesses would be filled, and the rioters wouldn't have been able to get a foothold, wouldn't have been able to get 6 blocks. They couldn't have gotten 6 feet if they had actually kept our economy going the way South Dakota has done. And the way the South Dakota governor ended up doing it was she said, I trust the people of South Dakota. I didn't see anywhere in the Constitution my power to shut down a private business. So she didn't. By not shutting down the economy, by actually trusting people, she had better compliance, she had better outcomes, ended up having lower incidence of COVID. What she found was when you treat people like adults, they respond more favorably. When you actually represent the people and not rule over them, you end up getting better outcomes and better respect. And guess what they ended up doing in South Dakota when she signed into an ordinance that said back to normal. Back to normal is what it was called. This was literally like the end of April. She signs this thing, maybe it was the end of May. She said back to normal ordinance. They threw her a parade. They threw the governor of South Dakota a parade. Does anybody in their right mind think that Jay Inslee, anybody wants to give that guy a parade right now? This essential versus non-essential, pitting citizens against one another, tearing up the social fabric, making sure that everybody is on this snitch list and everybody looking out for everybody. Now what he's doing is he's saying, I need businesses to be law enforcement now. Putting law enforcement in the position to have to enforce this mask thing and saying 90 days in jail but a $1,000 fine, but I'm going to leave it to local law enforcement on whether or not to implement it or not. Local law enforcement, like they have nothing better to do with their time than to do this stupid stuff. Now you're going to get disparate treatment but in different jurisdictions. And as if law enforcement doesn't have anything else to do, we'll enforce it by having regular citizens do this snitch list stuff. So it's really bad what's going on, and I think what's important is that we need to fight back. We need to fight back effectively, and the best way to fight back, frankly, is to make sure that in August that we nominate somebody for governor that knows the kind of the stakes we're in, that's all in, that is absolutely 1,000% committed to fighting these guys at the local level, at the state level, at the county level, making sure that we have somebody that actually has been in the arena for 22 years, that knows what it takes to win, to make sure that you have somebody that has absolutely got a dinosaur skin that can take the crap that's inevitably coming. And my stuff, I mean, think about this, $70 chair, total misunderstanding, total crap, but whatever. Whether or not my campaign paperwork was done correctly, please, minor stuff. The crap bombs that's going on with the other candidates right now makes my stuff look like nothing. And they are totally distracted because it's all being dropped on them at the last minute in the final weeks of the campaign. Anybody that was in this race needs to address all this stuff in the past. You don't wait to have these bombs drop on you a week or two before the election, especially when you've known about them for years. You don't let that stuff fester. You don't let it stop. Everybody since last November has known about my stuff. They knew about the chair. They knew about the campaigns, paperwork for all my initiative campaigns. It's all untrue. It's not correct. It's all just a complete fabricated opposition to me because I've been effective fighting for taxpayers. My stuff pales in comparison to the crap that's being hit on the other candidates. And the other candidates, they're in a position to go, well, I've never really run statewide, so I don't know how to react to it. So they're trying to fight back and trying to say it's really not anything, but it's all new. And my stuff is very old. It was all brought up last year during the $30 tax campaign, and it didn't work. Everyone's used to my stuff, but they also have seen me actually deliver results. So everybody in the state's got lower car tabs because of me and the ideas that I put forward. These other guys that are running, they haven't done anything for you. They're promising to do stuff for you if they get elected. I'm doing that as well, but my track record of actually delivering results, not just for the last 22 years, but even in the last 8 months while I've been running for office, I think shows that differentiates me substantially from the other guys in this race. Doesn't make them bad guys, it just means that they're just naive about what it takes in a statewide campaign to be able to put up with all the garbage that's going to come your way. And a lot of the candidates are basically going after each other by leaking a lot of information about the other candidates, and they're going after each other and clawing each other's eyes out. I just shake my head and just go, this is nuts. What are you doing going after each other? I've been doing everything I can to stay focused on Jay Inslee, because Jay Inslee is the problem. Well, all of them are clawing each other's eyes out and leaking stuff on one another and attacking one another on Facebook Live and trying to convince everybody why their other people in the race are bad. It's just totally unproductive. It doesn't move the ball in our direction. And so I'm here. I'm at the Seattle City Council chambers. I'm going to be speaking out against this job-killing jobs tax that Kshama Sawant is pushing, but it's important for us to realize that it's not just in Seattle that they're pushing this. Frank Chop has already introduced this exact same legislation on a statewide basis, where this is a $200 million tax increase in the city of Seattle. Frank Chop's proposal is a $2 billion tax increase on everybody in the state of Washington. A job-killing jobs tax, a job-killing income tax. This is Kshama Sawant's agenda taken on statewide. This is Jay Inslee's agenda, following in the footsteps of Kshama Sawant, where she is the idea leader for the Democratic Party. They're just simply following her agenda, and it is horrible to see to my state, Washington State, which I love. I was born and raised here. I do not like what they're doing in Seattle. I don't like what they're doing to the state of Washington, and you need somebody that's willing to fight that actually has been in the arena for 22 years and had some significant conservative victories in our state, and somebody who isn't just a regular Republican running, but I've got my own brand that I've built up during all that time that is different and attractive to voters across the political spectrum. With that, I'll just close with this last point. We proposed this local initiative in the city of SeaTac to ban this facial recognition tracking, and it is mind-blowing the level of support we've got for that effort. That is liberals, conservatives, independents, Republicans, Democrats, across the spectrum. There's no constituency that wants the government and corporations tracking us and saying whether or not we can get on or off or travel at the SeaTac airport. These are the kind of ideas and agenda that I have that's totally different than what the other candidates are promoting. These are basic constitutional rights where I just don't say I'm for the Constitution. I'm actually illustrating the kind of policies that I would implement if given the chance to be your candidate in August. So anyway, I love you guys. I'll keep in touch. And again, at 2 o'clock, they will begin the public testimony on this, and I'll be one of them. So anyway, love you guys. Talk to you later.